Greetings and welcome to another version of the Cooks with Collars edition. I'm Father Don Sinowitz, coming to you from the kitchen of the Cathedral of St. Catherine here in Allentown. Today we're going to make some homemade bread, a great treat, especially around Christmas and at Easter time. In a moment I will show you the ingredients needed. However, just a story, it was always, grew up in a family where making and baking food preparation was always done from scratch. My mother, Helen, was a great cook and baker, as were my grandmothers on both sides. And the bread recipe that comes to us today is from my father's mother, Sophia. She was a great baker, always had great homemade bread at Christmas and Easter time. So I once asked her for the recipe and she says, "I have no recipe, I just make it." So we arranged that the next time she was making bread, I went to visit her in her home in Reading, and what they did every time she was ready to put something in the bowl, I had her put it in a measuring cup first, so we got the quantities for all the ingredients by having her measure everything before it was put there. So that's how the family recipe came down. My mother tweaked it in a number of ways, so it's always a family favorite. One of the things before I go through the ingredients, just a little tip for cooking and baking, and this competition is called, the presentation's Cooks with Collars, and they want the priests, of course, the clergy in collars to represent that. Difficulty, however, is in baking, using flour or anything else. Flour and blacks do not get along. It's the same thing if parishes have Donut Sunday, priests know to avoid the powdered donuts because it gets all over you. They look a mess. So what I will need to do is to eventually change out of my blacks into a more flour-friendly outfit. Here are the ingredients needed for our bread baking. We begin with bread flour. There are a number of varieties available at your stores. It will be raisin bread, so golden raisins. You can use the dark raisins. Golden raisins are a little bit more mild in flavor. We need yeast, a quart of milk, 8 eggs, 2 cups of sugar, and some butter. So all these will go together to make our bread recipe. Now that we have the ingredients down, I just need to do something about my garb. So if you give me a few minutes, I will be back. We have our ingredients starting to mix in the bowl. So we have the wet ingredients in, and little by little we add the flour and the egg, combining it as we go along. This process takes a few minutes, as will the raising. I start and stop the mixer just so it can be gradually incorporated. And if the mixer goes too fast, you have flour all over. And here's the all-important yeast mixture. The yeast is the leaven that will allow the bread to raise. The Lord used the example of yeast in the flour. And that's how we are called to be as believers, to make a difference in our world. Without yeast, the bread wouldn't rise. It would be flat and hard and dense. But with the yeast, it raises and you have a nice, fluffy, airy piece of bread. Once everything is incorporated, we just let the machine do the work, or if you were doing it by hand, you'd knead it until you can see that the bread gets very light and starts to come away from your fingers, from your hands. That takes probably 20 minutes or so of kneading by hand, less time with the mixer. So we'll let it do its thing. Now the bread dough is complete, all mixed. It's a nice, stringy, flexible dough, and that's what you want. So it will now be put into a pan for rising. It's a large plastic bowl. I sprayed it with some baking spray, just so it's easy to get out of the bowl when we need. So this will go into a warm place out of a draft, covered with a damp towel. A dish towel is fine, and it will probably raise for 45 minutes or so until it's double in bulk. When it is, we take it out and we punch it down again and allow it to raise a second time. This helps develop the gluten in the dough. So the whole process really takes quite a number of hours from beginning until end. So it's good to begin in the morning and let the process take its place throughout the day. So I will be putting the dough in an oven that's not heated, but I do have the oven light on, and the light from the bulb will be enough to keep the oven somewhat warm, and at least the dough will stay out of a draft. So we'll be back in a little while when it doubles in bulk. Now the dough is finished rising and we're ready for our next step to put it into the baking pan. So I'll give you a quick look at that. Best thing to do, I have 9 medium-sized bread pans, and we weigh out the dough. About a pound, 1.1 pound of dough will go into each loaf. So I'll show you, and then I'll do one and finish them all, and then they need to raise again before they bake. So here is the dough that has been raised. You see we have the medium baking pans. They're all filled with the baking spray. I have a little scale, and we'll put 1.1 pound of dough for each loaf of bread. Here is the dough on the board with some flour. We'll be portioning them out, put them into the bowls, into the pans. So we're down to our last pan, last piece of dough. Try to press it down, pretty much shape it into a rectangle form so it will fit into the grease pan. Once all the pans are prepared, now the pans will go into another time of rising, this time again in a warm oven, unheated, just a warm oven with a light on, and that will give it sufficient heat that it can raise just about double in bulk again, and then we're ready for the baking. Here we have our 10 loaves of bread, almost ready to put in the ovens. The ovens are preheating at 350 degrees now. When they are heated, the tops of the loaves will get some egg wash, which gives them a shiny finish when the loaves are finished, and they should bake for about 25 minutes or so, all depending on the heat of the oven. So they'll be going in soon, and we'll take a look when they're finished. And here is the finished product. Take them out of the oven, let them sit in the pans for a few moments, and then after they set for about 5 minutes, take them out of the pans and let them cool. They must be cool before bagging, or condensation will make the tops soggy. So let them dry completely before putting them in plastic bags. This bread also freezes very well. It is best when it just comes out of the oven, so we'll be testing it soon. So there you have the version of Cooks with Collars from the Cathedral kitchen, homemade bread. To go along with it, nothing like butter. So another segment will show some butter sculptures that were done for Christmas, a butter lamb, as well as a manger that were on the Christmas table. The lambs, of course, could also be done and be appropriate for Easter as well. So we hope you enjoy the video. Any donations that come through the Cathedral version of Cooks with Collars will go toward our New Door Fund. As we pray in the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. My prayer is that the Lord will continue to provide and sustain for all of us and all of our needs, physical, spiritual, emotional, all way around. May God bless you and yours. Enjoy bread and butter. Enjoy the meal. God's blessings always.